heavy for 20 years.
My energy level was practically zero.
I looked in the mirror and I was very unhappy with what I saw.
But most of the time it was severe diarrhea.
I weighed 330 pounds.
I've taken blood pressure medicine ever since I was a young man.
I was on a total of about a dozen medications.
One for cholesterol, which made me really sick.
I used to pop pills like they were candy off of a tissue, off of a sheet of paper like I did when I was a kid.
I was diagnosed with cancer, and it was like you walk out of there and you're going, me? Now? Why? You know? And you know, nobody's exempt and there's no why.
I weighed 330 pounds, and I'm only 5 feet 1 inches tall. That's a lot of woman stacked onto a small frame. And I had been in a wheelchair for 20 years, and I'd been on oxygen 24/7 for 10 years. That's all day, all night, 7 days a week. 3 years ago, they gave me from 3 to 6 months left to live. So there was no hope left for me until I met Dr. Jeffrey Lord. And against his better judgment and all of his colleagues' better judgment, he didn't deny me life.
My name is Dr. Jeffrey Lord. We see approximately 1,000 patients a year in our facility here. Our average patient is on over 20 different pharmaceutical agents by the time they hit the door.
He introduced me to a word I'd never heard. It took me 6 months to learn to pronounce it, and that word was QIVANA. And he said, well, Pat, all I can tell you is it's made a world of difference in my life and my mother's life in the last year. It took about 5 days for it to really, the impact of it to really have an impact on my life. Actually, I was at home by myself and the doorbell rang, and I couldn't turn the chair around. I was hemmed up in a corner and I couldn't get it turned around. So I jumped up and it dawned on me what I was doing. And it scared me half to death at first, and then I started laughing, and I just died laughing all the way to the door. I mean, if you can stand up after 20 years of not being able to, that in itself is a miracle.
I'm Dr. Richard Mays. I'm a family practitioner, board certified. I've been in practice in Knoxville, Tennessee for about 26 years. Started doing integrative medicine where we incorporate natural products and alternative medicine with conventional medicine about 4 or 5 years ago. QIVANA has the research behind their products. In most of our systems we have 20 to 30 years of research behind them. We know that they work.
I'm a retiree, and I was a corporate executive meeting planner, and I had to retire because of my health. The neurologist wanted to put a pain pump in me where I could just hit it so it would direct my brain to think the pain would go away. A year ago, somebody introduced me to QIVANA. People envy my life now. They say, you have a charmed life, and I say, yes. Thank you, God. Thank you, QIVANA.
I was heavy for 20 years. And when I say I was heavy, I say that I was uncomfortable in my own skin. I was uncomfortable in my life. Every place I went, I knew that I judged whether I was the heaviest person in the room or not. So here I lose this large amount of weight and was never able to maintain it. And then all of a sudden I get introduced to QIVANA, and now I have the key to be able to maintain it. And now I've been able to maintain it off for 4 years, and that was always the elusive thing. It's about correcting the metabolism, and once we do that, that is the key to true health.
Since gastric bypass and lap band have become rather mainstream now, in fact, 250,000 people this year alone in the United States will have it, and over 1 million patients will have it worldwide. The QIVANA system, when used properly to optimize your nutrition, increase your protein, and reduce your total caloric intake, when used, it's as effective as gastric bypass without the risk of undergoing surgery. Not to mention the fact that a gastric bypass costs taxpayers if the government's paying for it, or gastric bypass costs the patient if they're paying cash, somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000. You could buy a lot of product for that.
My struggle with my weight issues really started after I had my youngest son. I felt so bad about myself, and I felt so exhausted because I tried so many different things and nothing worked. And I called my mom and I said to her, I said, you know what, I finally decided that I'm just going to have to realize that I'm going to be fat, and I'm going to have to be okay with knowing that I'm always going to be fat all my life. When I told her that, she said to me, I want you to try one more thing. And I said, oh my gosh. I said, I don't know. And she's like, just please try it. And I said, okay, I'll try this, Mom. And within a week of starting my metabolic and taking the shake, taking the probiotic, taking the Carse system, I couldn't believe already the difference that I felt. My mood felt different. I felt more stabilized throughout the day because my blood sugar wasn't so up and down.
My name is Michael Cochran, and I'm a music producer. I produce music with artists from all over the world. With my work schedule, it's crazy. It takes a lot of time, and it's very intense. So there's not a lot of time to go out and eat good things. So I looked in the mirror, and I was very unhappy with what I saw. So I started the metabolic program. 4 months later, I was down 35 pounds. And now I'm maintaining. It's been over a year, and I'm still maintaining my weight.
I am a honorably discharged United States Army veteran. My name's Bob Cochran. This is my wife, Sarita K. Cochran, and my number one, Michael Cochran.
I started on QIVANA because Michael and a very dear friend of mine was really pushing it. They were taking it and they were doing so good. They started me on QIVANA, and I started taking off weight and started feeling better, and went back to the doctor, and he said, you're doing great. With seeing what Mike had done and what I did, I kept pushing Bob, with my son, kept pushing Bob to go on QIVANA. So he finally broke down and said, okay, I will.
My wife on QIVANA, Michael on it more than I knew, and a friend of mine up in Orlando who was with the program, they kept yapping for me to do it because I was 221 pounds at one time. So I would try it for 4 or 5 days and I quit. And weight would stay up there. And then they just kept yapping at me like, hey, you know, do this and that. And Mike got dead serious more so than I knew. And so I started back. And I've stayed on the program. I've done what I've been told to do. I've been now on QIVANA for 6 weeks, and I've lost 21 pounds. The program's working for me, and I kind of like the fact that I'm losing weight, although I can tell it by taking up my belt. Other than that, I got 1 stomach instead of 3 now, so something's working. So I have to give QIVANA the credit because that's the only thing I'm using.
We've seen tremendous weight loss. We have Steve and Missy Deer that Steve lost over 108 pounds. His wife Missy lost 92 pounds. They did this in about a year's time using the metabolic system. Missy got off 3 prescription medications. Steve got off either 3 or 4 prescription medications. And they're doing it in a natural, safe way without the harmful side effects and drug interactions that we have to be concerned with pharmaceuticals.
My name is Mary Alice Conti. I am 80 years old and am a retired nurse. I have a history of gastric problems, from intestinal, stomach. I've had ulcers. In fact, in 1950, I had to have a triple bypass of the intestines because I was not getting a blood supply. And in that, I ended up having severe diarrhea. If I didn't have diarrhea, I had constipation. But most of the time, it was severe diarrhea. I didn't go anywhere because I had to find a bathroom. I had been on everything there was for diarrhea, for ulcers, for every kind of anti-acid that there was. So I started taking the probiotic. And since I've been on it and taking it routinely, regularly, I have no problems. Everything just works perfect.
You know, just about every one of our patients, we evaluate their internal intestinal tract. If you were to ask or quiz 100 gastroenterologists, their #1 prescribed medication would be a probiotic.
As an naturopathic physician, I see a lot of different natural products in the marketplace. And one of the key things that I've noticed with QIVANA is the science-based products. These products work. There was a young patient that came in, and her mother had taken her to many different physicians, a couple different regional hospitals just specializing for children. She was just a 5-year-old girl, and it was really the last-ditch effort for her to come into my practice. She had been all these other places, had tens of thousands of dollars worth of diagnostics, ultrasounds, blood work, CAT scans, MRIs, and to no avail. We got her assessed, and we did some chiropractic work with her. We also did some naturopathic work with her. In the naturopathic work, we looked at her absorption. She was not absorbing her nutrients correctly. We had to detox her. We had to bring on quality nutrition into her body with the QIVANA shakes. After about 4 or 5 weeks, we really saw a huge difference. And this patient's name is May, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful child. She still has some ups and downs, and she still has some challenges from here and there sometimes. But as far as dramatic results, we're seen within the first 4 to 5 weeks.
This is my lovely wife, Linda, and I'm Gene.
Hi.
We've been married 50 years, and this is our before and after picture. I have been in remission for 4 years. Chemo, my energy level was practically 0. I couldn't cut grass. I couldn't play golf like I used to. I even had trouble, had to learn to walk again. And just soon after that, Steve, my son, introduced me to QIVANA.
I think the reason we started it was for him to take a natural product to continue to build up his immune system after all he had been through.
So the platelets right now are at
an all-time high.
An all-time high. And I haven't compared them to, before, going back 5 years. When I went to the urologist, his parting remarks were, "You look wonderful, your reports are great, you have an angel on your shoulder."
That's right.
And I thought, when I left the office, maybe it's the QIVANA angel on my shoulder. Maybe, I don't know, is it? Could it be?
It could be.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it could
really be, yeah.
Even his oncologist, though, said he calls him his miracle patient.
Our first line of defense is in our intestines from the things that we swallow. We get heavy metal toxicity, and we get toxins from plastics and things every single day. We obtain this through our water that we drink, our food that we eat, the air that we breathe. And those toxins build up in your body, and if you don't remove them, they accumulate and people get sick. So it's very important to remove those toxins, and we have the best product in the world to do that, and that's a protein called modified citrus pectin combined with organic kelp, and it's in our product called Detox.
I had been retired a couple years, and then my husband retired, and so we started traveling a lot. And we were riding horses, and we would go out and through the cattle, with the horses and checking them out, and it just became such a fun time because in retirement we just couldn't wait, to really enjoy it and have a good time. And then I was diagnosed with cancer. I went through the whole a year of chemo and radiation. So I was looking for a way to rebuild my immune system, and my goal was to just get back on my horses as fast as I could, at the same time without having to take 30 and 40 supplements, and because by the time I had that blood work done and they gave me the list of what I needed to take, I was like, there's no way I can take that many pills in a day. When my friend introduced me to QIVANA, by the end of 3 months, all of my blood work came back better, But the biggest surprise was my bone density, that it had increased so much in the hip and the right side where I had the radiation. It had increased, and the nurse was funny because she said, "What calcium are you on?" And I said, "I'm not on any." And she goes, "What do you mean you're not on any?" And I go, "I'm not on any." And she goes, "Well, what are you doing? Because whatever it is, don't stop." I can tell you right now, this is my cancer records and my bills, and it's almost $400,000, of which I think my copay is 20%. So figure that out. Figure out the costs. Preventive maintenance of your body is probably the most important thing you can do.
I have 4 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. And when I was at my worst, I wanted so badly to be able to be active or do anything, interact with the children in any way. I tried, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't get there. And now, that 4-year-old great-grandchild of mine and I play chase and all kinds of things out in the driveway, and we have a blast together. It's a miracle, and until you've experienced it, words can't describe it to you.
I never thought that I could walk down the center aisle of a plane straight on and not turn sideways. When I get on a plane, I think is the time I really remember the most, because I was always anxious. And then when I sit down and I buckle the belt in and I see all that length, I'm like, yes.
Now I feel so differently because I feel more in control. I felt very out of control before.
It has straightened my life out to where I can live again and do what I want to do. And this is the first time in 30 years that my gastric and intestinal system has worked. So it's really such a blessing. It really is.
I am only on 1 prescription medication and very rarely have to take anything over the counter, and it's just wonderful and amazing to not have to be in fear and live in fear of getting sick again.
I'm playing golf again. I have no restrictions. I work in the yard. We travel. We do what we want. I don't take any medication at all.
Eat
0.
healthy.
And the best part of all of this, with my improvement, is I still have my 1 beer a day, religiously.
Yes.
Health is so important in life, period.
And they tell me this. I mean, I'm not just talking off the cuff. When I do go in for a checkup like once a year, they say, "This is just unbelievable. Lady, you are a true tribute to life."
I was discovered with a blood clot in my left leg about 6 years ago. And they put me on blood thinner, which I jokingly said to the doctor, "You're putting me on rat poisoning because they put me on warfarin." She never heard of such a thing, although it's quite common around the farm, and I used to have a small farm. I thought it was funny. She wasn't amused.
My doctors are about to starve to death because I was keeping all their mortgages paid. The funny thing is, if someone had ever tried to sell me this product, I'd have probably slammed the door in their faces. But I will tell you this much, you couldn't buy it back from me. You don't have enough of money.